My name is David Clifford. I'm a recent graduate of Maryville College this past May, and I majored in political science.
My name is Taylor Regati. I'm a recent graduate from Maryville College, and I majored in international studies.
I'm Nick Sexton. I recently graduated from Maryville College with a degree in political science. I start law school in the fall.
Hi, my name is Grace Costa. I'm a sophomore at Maryville College, and my major is international studies.
My name is Shankar Ghimire. I teach economics at Western Illinois University, but I used to teach at Maryville College.
So we split up into two different groups for collecting surveys of local businesses in Dolica. And so my role with the research project was, first I was with Taylor Regati collecting surveys of local businesses in Caber and in Dolica. And then when we had collected all of our data, Grace Costa and we collaborated to write a research paper on the data we collected and the analysis of that data from the perspective of business expansion.
I helped gather surveys of the small businesses in Dolica, and I helped write the report with Nick Sexton.
Yeah, so that was part of the team collaboration because there were two different teams collecting surveys simultaneously in Dolica, and then there was also part of our research hypothesis was on business expansion and then also on employment generation, and so we were kind of one side of the coin for the report, and then Nick Sexton and Taylor Regati did the report on how the findings related to employment generation.
My role in the project, I focus mostly on employment generation in the Cabre BDC in Dolica, and how microfinance institutions and credit cooperatives influence employment generation in small businesses.
For my role in the project, during our survey time in Dolica, Grace Costa and I went around with Dr. Ghimire's wife, Sanjita, and we collected surveys. And then specifically for the report, my role was looking at the impact of microfinance loans on employment generation in the Cabre Village Development Community.
One of my specific roles was to work with David Clifford on writing one of the papers that we finished. And our thesis was that microfinance would help develop business expansion. And together we analyzed the data to see if that hypothesis was supported.
This was more of a student project. I did my best to have students work together and then have their group experience working with their teams. And then I tried to coordinate the work that the students needed to do.
My experience with the Asianetwork project in Nepal, studying microfinance in Dolica, was really awesome. It was really great to get to experience a different culture and to gain that knowledge and understanding of how to do a research project. The topic was really interesting, and it was just I really enjoyed every part of it. It was really great.
Yeah, I've had travel experience in developing countries before, and this is the first time I've come to this side of the world, and I've never seen anything like it. I really enjoyed being able to experience a culture in Nepal and being able to do this research on microfinance institutions and credit cooperatives.
I think this was a really enriching experience. I've gotten to experience another culture, another language, and I've been able to travel to a rural area and an urban area. So I think it's helped make me a more worldly person.
My experience with the research team from Maryville College has been a great experience. Especially, it is something I had never done before, and having the best group of the students with me coming to Nepal and doing a research with the student has been a really enriching experience.
The findings were interesting. It wasn't cut and dry to where it was an obvious answer that microfinance was a benefit to the businesses it was provided to. I thought that was interesting. So our original hypothesis that starting your business with microfinance loans helps expand your business and generate more employment, due to several statistical analysis was proven we could not prove that hypothesis.
The findings I thought were really interesting because they're not what we expected. We thought that microfinance and credit cooperatives would have significant impact upon the employment generation in the rural communities. It was found that while there was an impact and employment was growing due to loans from credit cooperatives, they just weren't as significant as we thought we'd find.
Findings for our paper and the other one as well were inconclusive. Our data was not statistically significant, so we couldn't say that microfinance did help business expansion or employment generation. But despite that, there's a lot of documented successes that we were able to see in person.
The findings were a little surprising, mainly when we looked at the overall sample for the whole sample. The results were not statistically significant, but when we looked at the individual farmers and individual businesses that were doing more than average, they were being really helped because of the assistance that they got from local credit cooperatives. So in general, it has done good things to the village, to the community, but even so, if we look at the specific, more individual businesses and farmers, then we see even more positive results.
The thing I remember most from the fieldwork, probably the first case study we did, and which I interviewed a cardamom farmer, and so that was kind of my role with the research team. That was the one case study that I interviewed. And that was really interesting because we had to trek through the hillside, through the forest. Also have a couple of leech bites as a badge of honor for doing that, so that was fun. So probably that.
The one thing that I remember most was probably when we were doing our case studies. We went to different farms and different locations around Dolicha, and we interviewed people, but in order to get to some of the locations we had to trek through the jungle of the Himalayas and go through the terraces. And that was quite an experience and something I had never done before. But the interviews we did were fun, and we were able to learn a lot from the different agricultural operations that we looked into.
Probably what I remember most is the case studies, going to the different farms and different businesses and things, and interacting with the people on a personal basis. Specifically, when I interviewed the buffalo farmer, it was good just to interact with someone and see someone enjoy their work and get to see, obviously too, the beautiful scenery on the mountains and everything. It was unbelievable.
I think what I remember most from my field work was interviewing the herbal farmer and his experience with losing his mother to cancer. And with the help of an NGO, he was able to learn how to start cultivating a pine tree which the oil could be used to treat some forms of cancer, so I found that to be really inspiring.
The struggle that we had to face when we were traveling around, going up and down hills in rural, unpaved road, and us having to stay at a hotel that did not have running water all the time and electricity all the time. I think I was used to that since I have lived there for most of my life, but with the students it was something that they had never experienced, and which I think was a good experience for them. So it was a learning experience.
So the credit cooperatives, they were a growing industry. We could clearly see that. They were impacting a huge swath of the Dolicha district. That was the main thing that I really picked up, and how much capital and savings they moved around and provided. The case studies kind of showed that microfinance does have the capacity to be an economic positive for local businesses. Each case study that we did was a success story with microfinance to start the business and to expand. And the case studies generated more employment and expanded the business, so that was right in line with our hypothesis as a research team. And then the surveys were interesting just because there were just a wide array of the surveys, and they provided a much more nuanced look at the role microfinance played in Dolicha. Some folks didn't use those and used savings and were able to expand rapidly. Other folks had used microfinance successfully, and there were also businesses that were struggling that had used microfinance or the business savings.
So our collaboration was mostly through the credit cooperatives. We interviewed 4 of them, and we also surveyed 129 different local businesses throughout our project, and definitely learned a lot through that experience. The MFIs definitely have a much more positive outlook on their impact upon rural communities and business growth and employment generation in the area, whereas the business owners that we talked to, while they thought that enterprise had a positive impact, they just didn't see it. They didn't see the extent of it quite as much as the enterprise district was interested in.
The interaction with local people was amazing. Everyone seemed so welcoming and so kind. And the first few days here, it seemed like we kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. But once we interacted with people more, we built some relationships. And ultimately, had a very nice time, very nice visit.
I think it was very positive. The Nepali people were very welcoming, and even though we did get some weird stares just because we were different, everyone was very interested in talking to us, and they would try their English out on us, especially kids. But it was overall just really positive.
So the collaboration with local partners, mainly before we came to Nepal, we had planned to interact with 4 local credit cooperatives and the businesses that had benefited from local cooperatives in Mainapokhari. That's a community within Ghimire Village Development Committee. And I hope they learned something from our stay at Mainapokhari for about 12 days. So it was good both for us as a research team and also for the villagers in that community.
This really helps me in my future career, this Asianetwork research project, because I'm looking to probably go to graduate school to study public policy or perhaps professional school. And an experience like this, just getting such hands-on experience with research and things like that, that was really great. And also just it added a global perspective as well. And experiencing another culture was just very enriching academically and professionally. So I was really fortunate to be able to go on this trip, and I think it'll help me quite a lot as my career moves forward.
This experience, I think, will greatly benefit my future career as I'm looking into going to graduate school in international development and working with NGOs or companies with international mindsets in the future. Also, this project has really helped my research abilities as we were doing both quantitative and qualitative research.
This experience helps me in my future career because it exposed me to some very professional research techniques, and having to live and work in a country you're not used to, and learning to cope, and having to do the project itself and complete everything in a timely manner, and working with other people and trying to build relationships with local people as well. All those types of skills are applicable to just about any professional experience or environment. So I think this trip has benefited me personally in a very meaningful way.
Well, I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with my career yet, but I think exposure to this kind of professional research and analyzing it in a document as we did will really help if I do anything in the fields of international studies or sociology or journalism. But I also got a lot of experience with photography, which I'm considering pursuing professionally. So, as far as cultural immersion, we visited 2 major temples, Pashupati and Swayambhu. One was a Hindu temple and one was Buddhist. You got to see how those 2 religions kind of live harmoniously together, from at least what we can see. We also went to a rural community in Bhaktapur, and we got to be part of their 1-year celebration of a Hindu holiday where they sacrifice goats. So being exposed to that kind of helped me understand like different worldviews and practices.
Thank you, Asianetwork. It was a great opportunity for our students to experience the real research project in Nepal. Thank you, Asianetwork.